I stopped dead in the doorway. My boys were on the kitchen floor eating cold sandwiches, while my nephews sat at the dining table on the good plates, with steaming lasagna in front of them. "Let Claire's kids eat first," my mother said, like it was nothing. "Eli and Noah can have whatever's left." Claire laughed softly. "They'll get used to it. Kids like them don't need much." I felt my chest tighten. Something inside me snapped. I'd trusted my family for years, but right now I realized how wrong I'd been. I took a few quiet steps closer. Ava and Connor were smiling at the table, completely unaware. My boys, Eli and Noah, hunched over their paper plates, shoulders curling inwards, trying not to be seen. My father, Gerald, leaned back in his recliner, newspaper half raised, eyes on me. "They need to learn their place in the world," he said casually. Time slowed. I could feel the shame radiating off my boys. How many times had I missed this? How many times had I told myself it was old-fashioned family behavior? My hands trembled. Anger surged. "Boys," I whispered, "grab your backpacks." All four heads snapped to me. My mother's fake smile appeared instantly. "Oh, we didn't hear you come in," she said. Claire adjusted her silverware, not meeting my eyes. "The boys said they preferred sandwiches," she added, a small lie floating in the air. Eli looked at me, eyes dark and steady. Noah's voice was small, tight. "Can we go home now?" I wanted to shout, to break something. Gerald waved his hand dismissively. "You're overreacting." 9 years of checks, loans, co-signed mortgages flashed in my mind. I'd been financing my own children's rejection, one transaction at a time. And now it hit me. This wasn't love. This was control. I took a steadying breath. "We're leaving. And we won't be back until you explain this." The room froze. Claire's eyes narrowed. My mother's hands twitched at her throat. Gerald's authority wavered for the first time. Eli grabbed Noah's hand, protective and serious. I caught the family photos in the hallway, my family at the edges, Claire's front and center. The front door clicked behind us, soft but final. I whispered to the empty house more to myself than anyone else. I've just been blind. And in that silence, I realized this was only the beginning. I had no idea how deep this went, or what I would have to do to protect my boys from the family I thought I could trust. We drove home in silence. Eli and Noah clutched their backpacks, their small hands gripping mine and Malcolm's like anchors. The tension in their shoulders mirrored my own. I could still feel the sting of my parents' words and the way my boys had been treated. When we got home, I set their backpacks down, and they didn't even ask for a snack. They just curled onto the couch, quiet and wary. I sank into the chair across from them, trying to steady my racing heart. I had 1,000 thoughts, but I didn't know where to start. Malcolm leaned against the doorframe, silent, his presence grounding me. He didn't say anything about my parents, but I could feel his understanding. His hand brushed mine once, just enough to remind me that I wasn't alone. Later, I opened my laptop, the spreadsheet glowing in the dim light. Every single transaction from the past 9 years stared back at me. Roof repairs, car bills, medical emergencies, almost $140,000 gone. Every check, every transfer carefully recorded, a paper trail of my own exploitation. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. How had I let this go on for so long? How had I convinced myself that helping them was just what family does? Malcolm's voice echoed in my mind, the gentle warnings he'd given me for years. "They call you for money, not for love." I scrolled through old texts, old voicemails, and the pattern was clear. My parents and Claire had never treated my family as equals. The little comments, the cancellations, the just keeping things comfortable lies. They were all there, quietly shaping my life, my choices, and my children's experiences. I sank back in my chair, rubbing my face. I'd been financing their privilege, their sense of entitlement, and my children's shame. And now I could see it all in black and white. A small voice broke through my thoughts. "Mom?" Eli's dark eyes met mine, searching. "Are we bad?" My chest ached. "No, baby. Never you. This isn't about you. It's about the choices some grown-ups make." I reached for his hand, pulling him close. Noah slid beside him, leaning against my shoulder. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every familiar corner of our home felt different, filled with the echo of what had just happened. But beneath the anxiety, there was a spark, something I hadn't felt in years. Control. I was starting to take it back. I made a decision then. No more automatic transfers. No more excuses. No more letting my parents dictate my family's happiness. Not today, not ever. And yet, even as I tried to breathe, a part of me shivered with uncertainty. I knew standing up would make them angry. I knew they would try to twist, manipulate, and guilt me. But I also knew one thing for certain. My boys would never eat on the floor again while anyone else feasted at the table. I had taken the first step, but I had no idea just how far they would go to make me pay for it. The next morning, the house felt quieter than usual. Eli and Noah moved through the kitchen like little shadows, careful not to wake anyone else, though there was no one to wake. I made pancakes, and for the first time in years, we ate together at the table, plates clattering softly, laughter spilling over without fear or hesitation. But even in this calm, my mind wouldn't rest. I kept thinking about my parents' words, their casual cruelty disguised as concern. I remembered the way Gerald had said, "They need to learn their place," and my chest tightened. What did that even mean? And why had I let it slide for so long? Malcolm watched me quietly as I did the dishes. He never pushed, never judged, just waited. "You okay?" he asked gently. "I don't know," I admitted. I keep replaying everything. All the years. All the checks. All the excuses. Were we just enabling them? He nodded. They depended on it. They counted on you never saying no. And they weren't wrong to expect it. They knew you would. But you're saying no now? That's what matters. I looked at my boys' stacked plates in front of them. Eli's messy hair, Noah's crooked grin. They didn't know the full story yet, but I could see it in their small gestures. They were already lighter, freer, even if only slightly. I dug out a notebook I'd started months ago but never kept up with. I began writing everything down. Times my parents ignored our emergencies, the way Claire twisted words, the pattern of financial demands that never ended. Every small slight, every manipulative tactic. Hours passed without pause. By the time Malcolm came back from work, I had pages filled with notes, dates, and dollar amounts. I showed him. His jaw tightened. It's worse than I thought. I bit my lip, feeling both relief and dread. Relief for seeing it clearly. Dread for what this meant. How far I would have to go to protect my boys and reclaim our lives. Later, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "You're overreacting, Jackie. Come back tomorrow." I froze. My fingers hovered over the screen. For the first time, I didn't respond. I felt a rush of something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not money, not revenge, but control. My children's happiness was finally in my hands. That night, I tucked Eli and Noah into bed, their small bodies curled against mine. "Mom," Eli whispered, Do they like us less?" I hugged him tightly. "No, baby. They're just confused, and that's not your fault. You're perfect. Don't ever forget that." As I left their room, I paused in the hallway, looking at the photos of my boys and our small family moments. I realized that protecting them would require more than words. It would require action, boundaries, and courage I hadn't known I had. I had taken the first steps, but I could already feel the storm coming, and this time, it wasn't going to be subtle. The silence didn't last long. By midweek, the phone calls started. First, it was my mother, sweet voice, fake concern. "Jackie, honey, you left so quickly the other day." I didn't even get to explain. I almost hung up, but I didn't. "Explain what? That you fed my kids leftovers while your favorite sat at the table?" She sighed. "You're twisting things again. You've always been too sensitive. You know your father was just joking." My stomach turned. Too sensitive. That phrase had followed me my entire life, used to shut me down every time I tried to speak the truth. "I'm not twisting anything," I said quietly. I just saw everything clearly for the first time. There was silence on the line, then her voice hardened. "We did everything for you, Jackie. Don't forget who helped you when you needed it." I laughed bitterly. "You mean when I bought you a new roof? Or when I paid off Claire's credit card debt?" Her tone turned sharp. "You don't need to keep score." "I'm not keeping score," I said. "You are." Then I hung up. My heart pounded, but instead of fear, I felt something new. Relief. I'd said what needed to be said. The next day, Claire called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "I don't know what your problem is, but Mom's really hurt. You made her cry. You've always been dramatic, Jackie. Always the victim, always the victim. The words echoed in my head, twisting and burning. That was the family pattern, make me the emotional one so they could stay in control. But not anymore. That night, I sat down with Malcolm and told him everything. Every word of those calls, every manipulation. He listened quietly, his jaw tight. "They're trying to pull you back in," he said. "They're losing their hold and they don't like it." "I know," I whispered. "But it still hurts." He reached across the table and took my hand. Then we face it, together. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. I felt steady. But even as I said goodnight, I had no idea what was coming next. Because the next morning, when I checked my email, there it was, an invoice from my parents' accountant. A bill. For family help. They were actually charging me. I stared at the screen, disbelief turning to anger so fierce it made my vision blur. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was war. If they wanted a fight, they were about to see exactly how far I would go to protect my family. I sat there staring at the email, my hands shaking. A bill. For family help. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. But the longer I stared, the clearer it became. It wasn't. The invoice came straight from my father's accountant. It listed things like family support contributions, house maintenance, and even emergency loans repaid. Except I had never borrowed a cent from them. Malcolm leaned over my shoulder, reading quietly. "They're actually billing you," he said flatly, "for money you already gave them." I nodded slowly, feeling my throat tighten. "This is how they see it. Like I owed them all along," he rubbed his forehead. "They're rewriting the story, Jackie. Trying to make you look like the ungrateful one." And that's when I knew what this was really about. Control. Losing it terrified them. That night, after putting the boys to bed, I went through old files, bank statements, emails, text threads, everything I could find. There it was, in plain sight, transfers, receipts, and thank you messages from years ago. Every proof that I had given, not borrowed. I started printing everything page by page. The stack grew taller. Every sheet was a piece of truth, something solid against their lies. When the printer finally stopped, I sat staring at the pile. Part of me wanted to throw it all in a box and forget it ever happened. But another part, the stronger one, knew this couldn't be ignored anymore. Malcolm came in holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You're building your case," he said softly. "Not just for me," I said. "For Eli and Noah, I don't ever want them to think silence means peace." He smiled a little. "You're stronger than you think." The next morning, I sent one email, to my parents and to Claire. Short, direct. "I will not be sending any more money. Please remove my name from all financial documents. Do not contact me again unless it's about family emergencies involving health or safety." I hit send. My heart raced. 2 hours later, my mother called. I didn't answer. Then Claire texted, "You just made a huge mistake." I stared at her message for a long moment before typing back, "No, Claire." I finally fixed one. It felt like the first breath after drowning. Still, a chill crept through me. I knew this wasn't the end. People like my parents didn't give up control. They fought to the very last inch, and deep down, I could already sense it. Something bigger was coming. They weren't just angry now, they were planning something. And soon, I'd find out exactly what. Days passed in uneasy silence. No calls, no emails, no texts. It should have felt peaceful. But it didn't. Something about that quiet was wrong. It felt like the pause before a storm. On the 4th day, my phone buzzed while I was in the grocery store. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something made me answer, "Jackie?" The voice was nervous, shaky. "It's Ethan." "Mom and Dad's accountant." I froze. "Ethan, what's going on?" He hesitated. "Listen, I shouldn't be calling you, but I thought you should know. Your sister, Claire, she's been signing things under your name for years. Transfers, donations, even loans. They said you knew, but something didn't feel right. My heart started pounding. "What kind of things?" "Big ones," he said quietly. "Tens of thousands, Jackie. Maybe more." My vision blurred. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. "You're telling me my sister's been forging my signature?" "I'm sorry," he whispered. "They told me it was all agreed on as a family." I gripped the shopping cart just to stay standing. "Send me everything. Every document, every email. He didn't hesitate. I'll send it tonight. Just please don't tell them I called you. By the time I got home, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely unlock the door. Malcolm looked up from the couch, concern in his eyes. What happened? I told him everything. Every word. Every lie. Within minutes, he had the laptop open, scrolling through the files Ethan sent. She used your name for a loan, he said, pointing at the screen. And it's tied to your credit. That's why you've been getting those random letters from the bank. It all made sense now. The weird calls, the missing funds, the guilt trips. They weren't just manipulating me emotionally. They were stealing from me. I felt sick, angry, but heartbroken too. How could Claire do this? My own sister? Malcolm looked at me carefully. You have to report it. I shook my head. Not yet. I want to see how far it goes first. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about money. It was about power and how far they'd go to keep it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Claire smiling, acting innocent, pretending to care. But the truth was out now, and I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. If my family wanted to play dirty, they were about to meet a version of me they'd never seen before. I didn't wait long. The next morning, I drove straight to Claire's house. She opened the door, her face perfectly calm, like nothing had happened. Jackie, she said softly, you look tired. I took a deep breath. We need to talk, she crossed her arms. About what? About the loans. The documents with my signature. Her eyes flickered just for a second. Then she smiled, now small and fake. Oh, that. It's not a big deal. Mom said you agreed. I was just managing things for the family. My voice came out sharper than I expected. You forged my name, Claire. You stole from me. Her smile faded. You always think the worst of everyone. No, I said, stepping closer. I finally think clearly. For a moment, the mask slipped. Her face hardened. You wouldn't understand, she snapped. You've always been the favorite. The perfect daughter. The one who got everything? I blinked, stunned. What are you talking about? She laughed bitterly. Don't act innocent. Mom and Dad never stopped talking about you. How you made something of yourself. How Jackie's boys are so well behaved. You think you're the victim? Try being the forgotten one for once. Her voice shook, but her anger burned. I stared at her, speechless. So you stole from me because you were jealous? She glared. I took what I deserved. What should have been mine. Something inside me broke then. Not just anger, but deep sadness. Claire, I said quietly, you could have asked me for help. I would have given it. She looked away, her jaw tightening. I don't need your pity. Silence filled the air. The kind that hurts. Finally, I said, you need to fix this. Return the money. Tell the truth. Or I will. She didn't answer. Her eyes went cold again, like she'd already made her choice. I turned and walked out. My heart pounded the whole drive home. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. All I could think about was how far this had gone, and what my parents knew. Because if Claire had been doing this for years, there was no way they were innocent. That night, I sat in the dark, watching the rain slide down the window, and I realized something. Sometimes the people who raised you aren't protecting you. They're protecting each other. And when I found out what they'd been hiding all along, it shattered everything I thought I knew about my own family. I couldn't stop shaking as I drove to my parents' house. It felt different this time. Not like a visit, like walking into enemy territory. When I walked through the door, both of them were already in the living room. My father sat stiffly in his chair, pretending to read the newspaper. My mother stood near the window, arms crossed, lips tight. Finally decided to show up, my father said without looking up. I swallowed hard. I came to ask about the money, about Claire, about why my name's on things I never signed. My mother turned slowly. Oh, for heaven's sake, Jackie, are you still going on about that? Claire was just helping manage the family accounts. By forging my signature? I shot back. Her eyes flashed. Don't use that word. What word? Forgery, because that's exactly what it is. My father folded his paper and set it down, glaring at me. You've become disrespectful. You always had a temper, but this is too far. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. No, what's too far is stealing my money and lying about it. My mother sighed dramatically. We only did what we had to. You wouldn't understand. What does that mean? I asked. She hesitated, and for the first time, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear. My father spoke before she could. Your mother and I helped you through college. We covered things you never even knew about. You owe this family more than you think? I stared at him, stunned. You helped me? I worked 3 jobs through college. I sent you money when you lost your business. He looked away. My mother's voice softened suddenly. Jackie, please. It's not as simple as you think. There are things you don't know. About where that money came from. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? She shook her head. It doesn't matter now. Yes, it does. I stepped closer. Tell me the truth. But my father stood up, voice cold. You're not entitled to every secret. Sometimes it's better not to know. I looked between them. 2 people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, now standing like strangers guarding a vault of lies. Then I'll find out myself, I said quietly. And as I walked out, my mother whispered, almost too low to hear, Be careful, Jackie. Some truths can ruin everything. Her voice trembled. For the first time, she sounded almost afraid. I didn't know it yet, but the truth she was warning me about would destroy the image I'd carried of my family forever. I couldn't sleep that night. My mother's words kept echoing in my head. Some truths can ruin everything. By morning, I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to know what they were hiding, so I called Ethan, the accountant, again. He sounded nervous, like he'd been expecting my call. Ethan, I said, you told me Claire forged my name. But my mom said there were things about the money I don't know. What did she mean? He went quiet for a long time. Then in a low voice, he said, Jackie, there's something you should see. I found an old account, one your parents never told anyone about. It was opened in your name when you were a kid, but not by them. I frowned. Then who? Someone named Margaret Lewis. My heart skipped. That name didn't mean anything to me, at least not at first. Who is she? I asked. He hesitated again. According to the file, she's your biological mother. The world seemed to tilt. I felt my breath catch, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. That's impossible, I whispered. You must be mistaken. I wish I was, he said quietly. The adoption papers are right here. Your parents kept everything hidden. The money in that account, it was meant for you. College, future expenses, inheritance. They moved it into their own names when you turned 18. I just sat there, frozen. Every memory, every argument, every weird feeling growing up suddenly made sense. The distance. The way my mother treated me differently from Claire. The way she sometimes looked at me like I was someone else's mistake, my entire life, had been built on a lie. When Malcolm got home, I told him everything. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he reached for my hand and said softly, So they weren't just lying about money. They were lying about who you are. I nodded, tears finally spilling down my face. And they took what wasn't theirs. They used my birth mother's money to fund their lives. Malcolm's jaw tightened. You need to confront them again. This time with proof. I wiped my face, my voice steady. No, not yet. First, I want to find her. The woman who gave me life. Because if my parents had stolen my identity, I wanted to reclaim it, piece by piece. I thought I'd already lost my family, but I was about to discover a whole new one I never knew existed. I didn't know where to start. The name Margaret Lewis felt like a ghost, familiar yet distant, like something buried deep inside me all along. That night, after putting the boys to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and typed it in. Margaret Lewis, adoption, 1988. Hundreds of results. None looked right. I kept scrolling, searching through old records, news articles, anything. Then I found it, a small adoption listing archived in a public record. Infant girl, born June 1988. Birth mother, Margaret Lewis. Placed with adoptive parents, George and Diane Miller. My parents' names. My birth year. My stomach turned. It was real. I printed the page and stared at it for a long time. My entire life, every memory, suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. The next morning, I told Malcolm I needed a few days. He didn't argue. Go, he said. Find your truth. I drove to the city where I was born, a small place 3 hours away. The adoption agency still existed, though under a new name. I walked in shaking, clutching the papers like proof of my own existence. The woman at the front desk smiled kindly. Can I help you? I'm looking for information about a closed adoption from 1988, I said quietly. My birth mother's name was Margaret Lewis. She nodded and went to check. I waited, heart pounding. When she returned, she looked unsure. We do have that file, but what? It was sealed by request of the adoptive parents, she said gently. And the birth mother passed away 10 years ago. The words hit like a brick. She's gone? She nodded sadly. I'm sorry, but she left something in the file, a letter. It was meant for her daughter, if she ever came looking. I couldn't speak. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a folded page yellowed with time. My sweet girl, it began. I hope one day you'll understand why I had to let you go. I was young, scared, and alone. But please know I never stopped loving you. I chose the Millers because they promised you a better life. If you ever find this, I want you to know you were my greatest gift. I cried there in that small office, holding the only piece of her I'd ever have. But even through the tears, one thing burned in my mind. They promised her I'd have a better life. They lied to her, too. And when I found out what my adoptive parents had done to keep me from her, I realized their love wasn't protection. It was possession. I sat in the car outside their house for nearly 20 minutes before I could move. My fingers clenched around the letter from Margaret, my mother, until the paper was warm in my hands. When I finally went in, both of them were there again. My father watching TV, my mother folding laundry at the table, pretending not to see me. Jackie, she said stiffly, not looking up. You should have called before coming. I laid the letter on the table between us. I found her, I said quietly. Margaret Lewis, her hands froze mid-fold. My father turned the TV off. The room went silent. She's dead, I added softly. But she left me a letter. My mother's lip trembled, but she didn't speak. I know everything, I continued. The adoption. The hidden account. The money that was meant for me. My father leaned forward, his jaw tight. You have no idea what we went through to raise you. You were sick as a baby. There were hospital bills. Don't, I cut him off. Don't turn this into another guilt trip. You stole from a woman who trusted you. From me. My mother looked up then, eyes wet but hard. You think you were the only one who suffered? We couldn't have children. Do you know what that does to a woman? When we got you, I finally felt like I had something that was mine. And then she, your real mother, tried to take that away. I blinked, stunned. What are you talking about? She wanted you back, my father said quietly. When you were 4. She wrote letters, she called the agency. We told her you were better off here. We made sure she couldn't reach you. My knees went weak. You lied to her? My mother's voice broke. We were afraid, Jackie. We thought she'd take you away and we'd lose everything. So yes, we hid things. We moved the money. We did what we had to do to keep you. Keep me? I whispered. Like a possession? Her eyes filled with tears. Like a daughter. Something inside me cracked open then. Grief, anger, love, and loss all tangled together. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to forgive them. But I couldn't, not yet. You didn't keep me, I said finally. You trapped me in a lie. I turned to leave, my voice shaking. You had a chance to love me honestly, and you ruined it. As I walked out, my mother whispered behind me, We only wanted you to be ours. I didn't look back. I thought walking away would bring me peace. But what came next changed everything again. And this time, it wasn't from them. It had been 2 weeks since I walked out of that house for the last time. 2 weeks of silence. No calls, no texts, no apologies, and honestly, that silence felt like healing. For once, the noise in my head, the guilt, the doubt, the endless questioning, was quiet. Then one morning, while making breakfast for the boys, I heard the soft thud of mail hitting the floor, bills, flyers, and one envelope. No return address, but I knew that handwriting instantly, my mother's. For a moment, I thought about throwing it away, pretending it didn't exist. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the faint, shaky way my name was written, like it had been written through tears. I sat at the kitchen table and opened it. Jackie, it began. I know you probably hate us now. Maybe you should. I won't make excuses, but I need you to understand something before you erase us from your life completely. I kept reading, my heart heavy. When we took you in, I thought love would be enough. I thought if I loved you fiercely, you'd never need to know where you came from. But the truth is I was selfish. I didn't love you for who you were. I loved you for what you gave me. A purpose. A chance to feel whole again. And I didn't see how much it cost you. The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. I was wrong to hide your past. I was wrong to take what wasn't mine. But you were never a mistake, Jackie. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, even if I didn't deserve you. If you ever can, please forgive me. Not for me, but for yourself. Don't let my sins keep you angry forever. There was a second page. Just one line. Your real mother wanted you to know she forgave me before she died. I couldn't face her. Maybe you still can, in your own way. I sat there for a long time, the letter trembling in my hands. My heart ached, but something inside me softened. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about erasing what they did. Maybe it was about finally putting it down and walking away lighter. I folded the letter carefully and looked out the window. The morning sun was spilling across the kitchen floor, warm and quiet. For the first time in months, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. But before I could close that chapter completely, one final message appeared, one that would finally tie everything together. A few days later, I was sorting through old papers when an email notification popped up on my phone. Subject line, for Jackie Miller, from the estate of Margaret Lewis. My hands went cold. It was from a law firm in the city. The message said that a small box had been left in my birth mother's will, meant for me if I ever came looking. 2 weeks later, I stood in a quiet office holding that box in my hands. It was small, wooden, and carved with tiny flowers along the edges. The lawyer gave me a polite smile and left me alone to open it. Inside were a few photographs, black and white, slightly faded, of a young woman with warm eyes and a crooked smile. My mother, Margaret, and beneath them a locket. Inside it, a picture of a baby, me. On the other side, engraved words, my heart, even when apart. I pressed the locket in my palm and closed my eyes. It felt like holding a heartbeat. There was also a folded letter inside, written in the same handwriting as the one I'd found at the agency. It read, "My darling girl, if you're reading this, it means you found your way home, even if I'm not there to see it. I want you to know that I never blamed the couple who raised you. I only blamed myself for being too young, too scared, too alone. But I prayed that they'd love you enough to make up for what I couldn't give." Maybe they did, in their own way. Don't let pain harden you. You've carried too many heavy truths already. Let love win, even if it's imperfect. Let it free you. By the time I finished reading, my tears had soaked the page. That night, I sat with Malcolm and the boys by the fire. I told them the whole story, every truth, every secret, every piece of pain that had shaped me. And when I finished, Malcolm took my hand and said quietly, "You can stop searching now. You've found her. Both of them." He was right. I had lost 2 mothers, but in a strange way, I had also found them. One who gave me life, and one who taught me what happens when love turns into fear. The next morning, I put the locket around my neck. The metal was cool against my skin, but it felt right, like carrying both of them with me, finally in peace. For the first time, I didn't need answers. I didn't need revenge or apologies. I just needed to live, freely, honestly, and on my own terms, because the truth may have broken me, but it also set me free. And sometimes that's what healing really is. Not forgetting the pain, but learning to walk forward with it, head held high, heart still open.